If you're a quilter, you know that crazy quilting isn't new. Yet in my new series, this wonderful art gets a facelift. Barbara Randle, who's the author of Crazy Quilting with Attitude, stretched her imagination plus added whimsy, color freedom, and creativity to an art that started in the 1800s. Barbara, our quilting predecessors would be impressed with your flair.
Thank you, Nancy. Crazy quilting is fun, and it's easy, and it's stress-free. Anyone can do it. You don't have to have experience with a sewing machine. All you need is desire.
Here's a glimpse of our series, Crazy Quilting with Attitude. Barbara's signature fabrics are bright and full of life. The neck roll and throw are quilted and then embellished with equally bright and fun yarns and threads. That's what's next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's how-to sewing program with Nancy Zieman, is brought to you by Baby Lock, a premier line of sewing and embroidery machines, sergers, and accessories. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Ginger, a tradition of quality in scissors and shears for home, classroom, and industry. Ginger scissors and shears are the choice of professionals. Madeira, superior quality threads from Germany, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Prim Dritz, the source for sewing and quilting notions, including products by Dritz, Collins, and Omnigrid. Amazing Designs, an amazing variety of embroidery designs and software for any embroidery machine, including designs by Nancy Zieman. Koala Cabinets from Australia, quality crafted, fully assembled sewing furniture designed for maximum storage in minimum space. Rowenta, professional performance and beautiful results for all types of ironing, the choice of professionals. And Nancy's Notions. Discover the joy of sewing and quilting, a catalog filled with specialty notions, fabrics, and supplies.
During the series, Barbara and I are going to divide it into 3 different elements. For example, this purse really tells the story. First, we're going to work with Crazy Quilting, doing the actual piecing of the background fabric. In the second program, Barbara, I'm going to show, and you're going to show, these great embellishment ideas with yarns and threads, and then finally some fun projects. This purse would be just a great conversation piece, fun to wear, give your life a little pizzazz. And this is one of the projects very comparable to what we're going to show, but let's talk about the colors that you've chosen and the fabrics for this purse, or any of your crazy quilting projects.
Okay, well the fabrics and the colors are the most fun, because picking all that out and putting it all together makes all the difference in the world. What I do, I start out with maybe a fabric like this that I really like the color combinations on, and then I go and I build on that fabric. And I have this nice assortment of colors, and then I like to bring in a black and cream maybe, and just kind of give these fabrics a little lift, make them happy, make them sing, and I think the black and cream has that effect. And
please show some more.
Well, I was going to just show you some other color combinations that are most unlikely, because here we have an aqua and a kind of yellow-green and brown, and we have interspersed a little animal print in here, and we have a little butterfly on our silk brocade over here. But this is a really nice combination of fabrics that would make a great purse.
Now the fabrics, as you mentioned, this is a silk brocade. You have a lot of other brocades plus different types of silk fabrics. We're not just working with cottons here.
Oh, that's correct. My thing is the glitter, the glitz, the shiny, the fuzzy, anything like that is what I think makes these projects great.
Barbara has another color combination that I think is really bright and fun. And notice the color, the common denominator of the cream and black prints. You taught me that whenever you find a black and cream print, to buy it.
That's correct. They're not easy to find, but here we have a eyelash fabric that is red, and we're using a most unlikely color along with that red, which is orange. That's not your normal combination, but they seem to work together.
They certainly
and we've got the oriental brocades in here, and the polka dots. All of this works together to make a really nice combination.
The Crazy Quilting, which we'll show you in just a few minutes, is pieced on a foundation fabric, and we have 3 samples of foundation fabrics, different weights for different end results. We're starting off with the lightest weight.
That's right. This is an organdy, and I use this organdy when I want something with some body, but I want a lightweight finished product. So I use it on some evening bags that I do.
And you'll see the fun evening bags later on in this series. And then here's just a traditional weight of a muslin.
Yeah, muslin, there are times when you want to use muslin, but for embellishment, you want to use a heavier fabric. It just goes easier, but a lot of times you need something that's lightweight. I mean, for a garment, for example, muslin would be the thing to use.
But then we go to the other extreme. You can see this isn't lightweight.
That's right. This is canvas, and I use canvas for most of my handbags. You can use muslin if you want to and use an interfacing, but really this just kind of does double duty there.
We're going to cut the foundation fabric about 1 inch larger than your pattern piece or the size, the finished size that you need.
That's correct.
And then the other fabric pieces, you don't need a lot of yardage, you just need a variety of fabrics. You're going to cut these in 3-inch strips for all of Barbara's projects. So we have some ready to go for our first foundation piecing. 3-inch strips, about 10 to 14 inches in length. But the centerpiece is a little bit different.
That's correct. We use a square in the center.
This is 4 inches.
And the first piece that you put down really makes a difference. So you want to cut a corner off so that you actually have 5 sides, and this is going to allow for great angles in your piece.
So we're going to start with this piece, a 5-sided piece. It doesn't have to be any specific 5 sides.
That's
it's just
right.
However you'd like to cut it. A variety of 3-inch wide strips, and the craziest fabric that has a little bit of attitude. Now we'll take these fabrics to the machine and we'll show you how to do traditional crazy piecing.
I like to teach 3 different methods of crazy quilting, and today I'd like to begin with the more traditional crazy quilt technique as featured on this pillow. I start with a 5-sided central piece, then I build around this piece until the foundation fabric is covered. This method is used with pieces that are symmetrical.
As Barbara mentioned, that 5-sided central piece is the key. And when placing it on your foundation fabric, don't place it square with an edge, but cant it, as you can see here, and base down one side. Now Barbara will show you how to add all of the other 3-inch strips to the side of this 5-sided central piece.
That's right. The placement of this central piece is most important because it determines the angles that you get for your whole piece. So this is a very important step. We're going to take our first piece and we're going to lay it along one of the longer edges, and we're going to trim it to fit. So I'm going to just trim this piece off right here, and then I'm going to place it under the presser foot, and I'm going to use the edge of my presser foot as a guide, and we're just going to sew right across here. We don't want to get too close to the edge because these, especially these silks, want to ravel, and we don't want to work so hard and then have it come apart after we're finished. But then we're going to flip, so we've actually done this sew and flip method. So here we have this piece, which Dupioni doesn't always have to be pressed. I do feel like pressing is very important. This piece is a eyelash fabric, and we're going to stitch it down along the second edge of our original piece so that we're actually just extending this 5-sided piece.
You mentioned earlier that you don't have a lot of sewing knowledge to do this because it's a lot of straight stitching to begin with.
That's correct. I have people come in that have never sewn before that are just amazed that they can do this.
And I'll give it a little pressing it open.
Yes. Okay, so as you can see, we're going in a counterclockwise direction, and we're going to next take another piece of fabric, and we're guided, remember, by this original 5-sided piece, and we're going to cut this. Our pink fuzzy stuff has become an extension of our 5-sided piece, so we're going to place this under our presser foot, and we're going to just sew straight across. This one also needs to be pressed.
Okay, we'll press it again. We'll show you the base of working with adding 5 pieces because it will give you the foundation for doing the crazy quilting.
That's correct. We're going to use this orange piece next. This is a very important place on the crazy quilt because, as you can see, we have this little edge, and remember, we're guided by that edge, and as long as you remember that, you're going to be okay, even though that last piece you put down sticks out. So we're going to straight across here.
You don't have to do a lot of pinning. If you press properly, things will kind of hold themselves in place. But Barbara, pressing is really critical, isn't it?
Pressing is so important because we're going to show you embellishment later, and when your pressing is not just right, it's very difficult to get your embellishment to look great.
So your common guideline to me is press it flat as a pancake.
That's correct. That's the terminology we use.
So we'll just press that flat as a pancake right here.
That's right.
And we have one more side, and it's really getting to be a very interesting piece.
Yes, it is. Okay, and I'll look at this piece and see what colors I want to use, and I saw blues, so I thought, okay, greens were on one end, I want blues. So that's the thing about Crazy Quilting, you can just create your own look, and all these wonderful fabrics out today. And remember, I'm guided by that fifth side of my original piece, so I'm sewing down. And notice that I actually didn't trim this piece off to start with. You can trim it before you sew or after you sew. It's just, some people do it one way, some people do it another, but
and you're trimming off the excess
trimming
angles.
off the excess angles so that we have a nice clean piece.
Now remember, this is called crazy quilting. It's not called logical quilting. So you do have quite a unique perspective of fabrics and how they interplay together.
That's correct. I mean, it's really artwork.
Here is one of Barbara's art pieces. She's an artist to begin with, and you can see she's transformed her art into fabric. And this is just the basic foundations section of the quilting section. We're going to be adding embellishments, but notice the length of the pieces. They're too big. So we'll flip it to this side, and Barbara, then you simply just trim to meet the foundation size. The second option for foundation piecing is ideal for pattern pieces that are asymmetrical, like this neck roll pillow. We'll again incorporate the flip and sew technique, starting with a square on the foundation. Notice the fabric and color selections. It's not what your grandmother would have chosen. That's why we call this series Crazy Quilting with Attitude. Now we used a 5-sided central piece for our basic foundation. And you mentioned to me, Barbara, that that's the foundation piecing used most frequently.
That's correct.
But with this chevron style, we're not going to have a 5-sided central piece, but a 4-sided square.
That's right.
And here you can see it's placed on an oblong. You use it more for oblong shapes. Perhaps a children's Christmas stocking would be a great place to do this. And it's point on point. Barbara already made these samples, so I'm just going to put these up step by step to show that you again worked in the counterclockwise method, and this silk brocade was first.
That's correct.
And then you added a beautiful hot pink fabric and some more eyelash fabric, so worked around in the center. Now you have the width filled up. So after filling the width, then what's your recommendation?
Well, I like to just concentrate on getting one end of it finished, and so I do this chevron style, so as you can see, and then after one end is done, I come back and do the other end, and you end up with a piece that is beautifully angled, and yet you got the crazy quilt look, and you've used the same method that you used with the traditional piece that we showed you, except that you have a centerpiece that's 4-sided.
You saw a display shot in Barbara's home taken of this neck roll pillow, and here it is. You can get a close-up shot, but notice the center piece, and you radiate it out from that center piece, and you can tell where Barbara got all her color combinations just from looking at this tapestry and to see all the various colors that are in here. And isn't it fun to add these brights? It really livens up this piece of fabric and gives it a lot of flavor.
You know, it makes you look at fabric a different way.
Yes, that's right. This is another chevron piece, and this is really unique. It's an evening bag that we'll detail in the third program of our series, and you have fun names for your projects.
Yes, this purse is called a night bloomer, and I actually have a plant that's a Sirius night bloomer. That's the name of it, Sirius, and but it just reminded me of a flower.
This particular pattern piece was also pieced with the chevron foundation piece, and I bet you can guess which was our starting point. The polka dot, the traditional cream and black fabric print that Barbara started with.
That's correct.
And you did have the piece cut to size and then pieced around the edges to get the chevron look, but again, here was it wasn't really a square you started with, but you had it to shape the side.
Actually, you know, it is a square. And, but it just fits right in that little point.
And you can see the stitching from the underside to see the ways in which it was added. Now you have one more foundation piece. We told you there would be 3 of them. And let's look at this adorable handbag. And like the night bloomer, this one has a name.
This bag's called a pick sack. And as you can probably tell, I'm from down south. And the people that pick cotton down there have sacks that they put their cotton in. So I decided that we need a pick sack. So this is the pick sack.
The outer pocket is embellished with on-slant chevron piecing. You can see all the pieces are on slant in this area, and this is perhaps the simplest of all the crazy quilting. None of it is difficult by any means, but we'll show you the foundation piece. Again, perfect for oblong shapes, asymmetrical shapes, and one of the 3-inch strips has been placed on an angle.
And notice that piece is not brought right to the corners. It's actually about 1 inch from each end.
And then after placing one piece, by the way, we basted down both sides of this section so that it would be positioned properly, so you can get it flat as a pancake, as you mentioned. Meet right sides together of 2 strips, stitch and press. Pretty soon you'll fill both ends of this piece and then cut to size. And presto. Simple as that, you can get that foundation piece. You notice that Barbara was trimming off a lot of extra lengths of fabric. And Barbara, here is something that you made with all the leftovers.
That's right. And these pieces, I call this create a strip. And I usually use these on larger pieces. When you actually get out around the perimeter of these big pieces, you end up with long strips. So instead of having long strips of one fabric, you can take these little pieces and create a strip.
With fabric, you can also add some dimension and detail with prairie points. And you traditionally think of prairie points as something that you'd use in logical quilting, not crazy quilting. But we're going to put it into this crazy quilting piece. And Barbara, as I get these strips established, here we go, you can explain the process.
Okay, this strip has been, it's a 3-inch piece of fabric. It's just one of our strips we use. It is folded and pressed in the middle. I have drawn a horizontal line across it, a pencil line, 1/2 inch from the raw edge. There are lines that are vertical that are drawn 2 inches apart all the way across, and you clip on these vertical lines up to the original pencil line that was horizontal. And once you've clipped all of those, you start folding those raw edges up to that horizontal line to create a little point.
And press.
And press.
I'm not going to press on an angle because I already have pressed another piece. And here we'll simply see that it's placed along the edge of the fabric, and after it's been positioned there, then the next step to do is to cover this with your next piece, stitch and flip it, and you'll have a perfect parry point inserted.
To give you more ideas on how to feature crazy quilting, I'd like to share with you a showcase of projects. My friend Virginia Lindsay created this elegant pillow using the traditional crazy quilting technique, starting in the middle and then building around the centerpiece until the foundation fabric was covered. Although Virginia selected neutral colors, which are not my personal favorites, to construct this pillow, the intricate tone-on-tone stitching and fluffy trim give this pillow more than enough attitude to be called crazy. This stocking I created for my granddaughter Abby using the chevron crazy quilting technique. It's made with some of my favorite bright fabrics and is a celebration of color and embellishment. What child, big or small, wouldn't be delighted to wake up to such an exciting stocking on Christmas morning? This project is a quick way to brighten up the holidays and your loved ones' faces.
You have 3 great options for working with crazy quilting, starting off with a 5-sided piece in the center, or for a chevron look, a square on point in the center, or even just to create an on-slant look. This will give you the basis for your quilting pieces. Finally, It's possible to keep your thread organized, together, and dust-free. The Madeira Thread Treasure Chest is filled to the brim with 190 spools of essential Madeira embroidery threads, ensuring you have just the right one for any project that comes your way. Plus, each thread cradle is labeled with its corresponding spool color and number for easy access and even easier reordering. Compact enough to keep next to your machine, the Madeira Thread Treasure Chest is an embroiderer's dream. Since I began sewing on the Koala Outback Plus, my sewing motivation has soared. This ergonomic cabinet offers a workspace in every direction. To the left, there's a fold-out top. To the right, there's more workspace plus an additional pull-out mini cabinet. When the back work surface is swung out, this incredible cabinet offers over 23 square feet of work area. Spacious when open, compact when closed, the Koala Outback Plus puts everything within easy reach. See the measurement line you need over any fabric, whether you're working with navy, pink, even a floral print. OmniGrid rulers manufactured by Primdritz feature contrasting black and yellow sight lines, allowing you to measure and cut any fabric with precision. Because these exclusive double sight lines are accurate to 2/100ths of an inch, you're sure to get an accurate cut, no matter what color of fabric you choose. Are you ready to take an embroidery trip? When Amazing Designs embroidery cards, discs, and CDs first appeared on the market, I wondered if there were enough embroidery designs and creative ways to use them. My feelings of doubts disappeared as I stitched out my first designs and were quickly replaced with feelings of enthusiasm. I found that each design can take on so many looks just by changing the thread colors, fabrics, and placement. It didn't take long for me to progress from a simple journey to a full-fledged embroidery exploration. You'll enjoy the trip too. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. That's a quote from Barbara Randle, my guest during this three-part series on Crazy Quilting with Attitude. We're detailing working with decorative yarns, threads, stitches to embellish a crazy quilted square. Barbara, you've taken crazy quilting, a time-honored tradition, and placed it fast forward into the 21st century.
Well, the rule here is color, and it's not whether the colors match, it's if they balance. And so now, after we've done our foundation piecing, we're going to do the embellishment. We're going to put the icing on the cake.
This pillow showcases decorative threads, yarns, and trims. Techniques used include bobbin work, an accent called driving, and fuzzy yarn embellishments. Discover the joy of embellishing on Crazy Quilted Pieces, next on Sewing with Nancy. In the first program of this series, Barbara and I detailed working with crazy quilting, doing the foundation piecing, working with a 5-sided central piece, adding beautiful fabrics, silks, brocades, textures to create an interesting foundation. But this may seem interesting, but it's not enough, because Barbara, we're going to change this square into an interesting square with lots of thread and detail. The first thing we're going to do is something that we call bobbin work.
That's correct. We're taking a heavier decorative thread that won't go through a needle or the upper tensions of your machine. We're actually dropping it into the bobbin. And
here I have some examples of the bobbin or heavier decorative threads. I've used these on serging programs before. They can't fit through the eye of the needle. They went through the looper. Here they're going to go in the bobbin as Barbara recommended, and we simply would wind using your machine this decorative thread in the bobbin. Wind a couple because you don't get as much thread on a bobbin as you would with traditional thread. If you have a drop-in bobbin case, you'd like to recommend buying a second bobbin case.
correct.
Because you need to loosen the screw in order for the bobbin to go in here and the thread to come out very evenly. If your machine has a drop-in bobbin without a case, as we do, Barbara's going to show you how to bypass that tension.
Okay, I've dropped my bobbin down into the slot. The tail of the bobbin is loose. Ordinarily you'd pull it through your bobbin tensions, but I'm going to just let it be loose and come straight up, so I'm going to manually bring the thread up, pull it to the back so that it's pulling very easily through there. And we're going to take our piece and we're going to turn it over on the wrong side, and all these little lines on the back that are the seam lines are going to be our road map. So we're going to start on one of these lines and just use a decorative stitch and stitch all the way across the line.
And you've lengthened your stitch?
I've lengthened my stitch, I've maxed out the length, and I've maxed out the width of this stitch. And I'm using monofilament thread on the top. And we don't want to use the thread cutter. We want to bring the needle up, turn it over, cut our thread, and these tails will be brought to the back. And as you can see, we have this beautiful bold stitch that is reminiscent of the old hand stitches that were used on the crazy quilts of old. So, and here's an example of a piece that all the lines were done, all the seams were done with bobbin work. I used the same color thread on the back. Some machines don't do well with monofilament thread, so you can just match up with your decorative thread on the top of your machine. But as you can see here, the decorative threads, the decorative stitches show up on the back of there, and we have our beautiful bow stitches on the front.
Key is working from the underside of the fabric, loosening the tension or bypassing the tension and using decorative threads. Barbara's going to set up the machine for the next step, working with decorative embellishment. And as you can see on one of our crazy quilted pillows, the face of the pillow has a lot of embellishment on it. Not only with the bobbin work, you can see at each seaming, but the technique that with yarns and trims that Barbara calls driving. Now, driving may be kind of a new term to you for those of you who are sewing and quilting, and I've learned it as couching, but I've never seen couching this beautiful. And Barbara, you've changed the name to driving.
I've changed the name to driving because it makes me feel like I'm driving when I do this. So what I want to do is I want to take a piece of yarn. I've set my machine to zigzag, and I have increased the stitch length just a little bit to about 2.5, and I have decreased the stitch width just a little bit to accommodate the size yarn that I'm using. And we're just going to zigzag this thread onto here, this yarn onto here. And I use just an all-purpose sewing foot with a slot in the middle. It seems to work the best for me because I use these yarns that are bumpy. And we're just going to do little curly cues and anything that goes. We're just going to let just go any way we want to go with it. And I keep my eye totally on the needle as I go because I want to watch and make sure I'm catching this yarn under here. Sometimes you have to go a little faster to get the curls that you want here. But I'm just going to keep going around
it
here.
It truly is driving.
I'm driving. And you know, if you miss a place, you just lift it up and go back because you're using monofilament thread on the top. And you just want to go back and pick up where you left off. And you always start on an edge and you always end again on the edge.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now the yarns that you can use for driving are as varied as the fabrics we've chosen for the crazy quilting. So get lots of bumpy textured yarns. This black and white was actually recycled yarn from a sweater. So we just unraveled the sweater and notice the texture that's in the yarn, and what a wonderful thing to do if you're going to toss a sweater. This is what you can do with it. There are some other options that you can do for working with yarns. You can't put them through the needle, so you have to zigzag them down. This is a 3-groove cording foot, and it has a slot cover or a kind of a door that kind of latches on top. Or I have 2 yarns in 2 of the grooves right now. And I'll just hold this upright and slide the 3rd yarn into place. Then on your machine, Barbara, you like to use a decorative thread in the top.
That's correct.
For example, a metallic thread in the top and a decorative stitch or a 3-step zigzag stitch to zigzag this down into place. I'd like to show you one of the techniques that Barbara used for this. And here you can see that here are 3 distinct threads. She's used a decorative stitch with metallic thread. Now with metallic thread, we also like to use an appropriate needle.
That's correct. You have to.
And that type of needle would be a Metallica needle, a Metafill needle, one for metallic threads. It'll come by a variety of names. So be sure that you choose the appropriate needle and thread and then just zigzag, or stitch, I should say, down the decorative threads. So we have a lot of combination of threads here, working with driving, the loop-de-loop threads, with a zigzag stitch, the bobbin work, stitching from the underside with decorative thread wound into the bobbin, cutting those tails long, and then drawing the tails to the underside and pulling them through. And here you can see the backing, and then working with that groove foot to zigzag or decorative stitch the threads into place. So these are some options of crazy quilting with attitude for decorative threads. Next we'll show you some additional work with accents of buttons. If you look at any vintage crazy quilted or crazy piece throw or blanket, you'll find buttons. So with crazy quilting with attitude, we're adding buttons as well.
That's correct. This is a square that will be used in the construction of a throw. And you're going to see buttons on here from this clear button that kind of blends in with the fabric behind it. And also the beads are working in here with the buttons. And we come down here to a button that looks like it might be a vintage button with a mother of pearl and a little design etched into it. And on down to this little person down here who has a button for a head and two little shoe buttons for their shoes. My friend Sandra Morgan did this square, which is just exquisite, and it is a great example of how you can use beads and buttons and even buttonholes over here.
In this turquoise strip, there are buttonholes, and Sandra has woven ribbon through the buttonhole openings. It's kind of an interesting combination. This really is an example of more is better.
That's right, and she's combined machine embellishment with hand embellishment, with buttons, with beads. There's a little tape on here with little flowers and lace over there on the other side. She's actually done this is a yarn made into a little pom-pom, and she's just a charm. Everything you can even imagine is she's incorporated into this square.
We'd like to show you how to add this little doll figure to the crazy piecing work because we found these great buttons. The buttons had the face already painted on it, and in the book that accompanies this program there's a template for this little dress that's been traced onto a piece of paper-backed fusible web and then fused to a piece of fabric. Your template has been cut out and the paper backing peeled away, and you've positioned it on one of the squares.
And we're just going to use little pieces of just little scraps of yarn as the arms and the legs. We're just going to put them under there before we do our fusing. And we're going to take the iron, just fuse this down. I think that's good. And then this is ribbon floss that I just used for her hair, and we're going to just pin it there now, but you would sew it on there, and then you're going to just place this little button so that her hair just comes like that. And of course we're going to do all our applique stitch around the edges of her dress to hold it down beautifully.
So really a button can be in a very traditional manner, but this is a button with attitude.
Well, very contemporary.
Yes. When I think of buttons, we also think of beads. We had beads on that first beautiful square, but there are also beads that are by the yard. And you could insert the beads as you are doing the crazy piecing or the crazy quilting, as we have done here, simply by placing the beads before attaching the two pieces of fabric. We did this in the first program, Barbara, but we would lay the bead down by the yard and make it a little shorter.
Right. We want to take our seam allowance into account as we sew.
So a generous 1/2 of an inch, cut it 1/2 of an inch shorter.
Right.
Cover it with your next piece, and then with a zipper foot stitch as close as possible.
That's right.
When it brings it up, there you have it inserted in the seam, adds a little extra dimension, attitude, and flair. So great way to add accents.
And now Nancy is going to show how to take beautiful yarns and make a braid with a tassel.
I'm going to give you the close-up detail of working with creating braid and a tassel at the same time, adding dimensional effects to your crazy quilting with attitude. Barbara has chosen beautiful yarns and decorative threads in this area and has followed one of the seams of the crazy quilting. And then the tassel at the end, we added a few more pieces of yarn to give that some fullness. As you can see, because this is dimensional, you would add this at one of the very last things. You would do your bobbin work, stitching, the driving, the adding of the other decorative yarns and threads, and this is one of the last things you'd work with. So I've chosen, you can see some interesting yarns, some eyelash looking yarns. This we like to call little butterfly, has little butterfly ends, 4, 6, or 8 of these, 18 inches in length. find the center, and that's where you're going to start to stitch this down. Now I've decided that, let's see, this is going to be a little purse that we'll make in our third program. And I know that this is the top area of my purse, so I'd like to have the braid hanging from the top. So I'm going to start along this seam. So you have to kind of decide where this is going to be positioned. And then simply stitch over the braid and then reverse it. And then stop with the needle in the down position so that it's beyond the braid or the trim. Raise the presser foot, cross the trims in front of the foot, lower the foot, and make certain that you're not pulling this very tight. You want to have some slack in the yarns. Let the yarns relax and then stitch 4 to 5 stitches, or maybe 6. I think I did 6 there. Raise the presser foot, gently cross these, and again, make sure that they're not pulled flat because this will add dimension, and stitch. Raise, cross it. Lower the presser foot, stitch. And I think it's a little bit easier to do this along a straight edge, or this is not a straight edge, along a seam so that it's straight instead of curved. When I did this the first time, I pulled the yarns too taut. So learn from my experience and just let the yarns relax. And pretty soon we'll get to the tassel portion. I'll just keep crossing this. Raise and twist. And again, I'm going to let those relax again. And here we go a couple more times. Now as I get to the end of this seam, then I'm going to create the extra tassel. I'm keeping in mind that the tassel portion will not be in the construction of this purse. This will be a purse, so I have a 5/8 of an inch or 1/2 inch seam allowance along there. Be sure and allow for that. And I'm going to just kind of bar tack at the very end. I'm going to back tack a little bit. And then I'm going to add some more extra trims here. So I have some extra little trims added here. Raise the presser foot and just kind of tack these into place. Again, just sew forward and sew back. All right, that should do it. Now as I lift this up, you can see the trimming that I have added to this area. And it's braided nicely. And then to get this to have some fullness, we'll just poof it out a little bit and cut. And you may find that after you've cut this, that there really is, you need to add some more yarns. If so, if you need greater tassel, then just simply go back and add a different color. So that is the braided trim with tassel. You can do a variation of this theme by just adding a little pom-pom effect, as we have on this sample. Rather than having 18-inch lengths of thread, we had about 4-inch lengths, or in this instance we just simply wrapped over about 3 or 4 fingers, multiple threads, stitched in the center, back and forth through this area, and then cut. So you have 2 options, braid with trim or a little pom-pom to add dimension.
Here are a few more projects to inspire you on your crazy quilting adventures. If you like color and lots of it, then you'll love crazy quilting. I used 12 19-inch squares to create this throw, and as you can see, I went crazy with color. Doesn't it make you just want to dive into your fabric stash and search for long-lost treasures? I embellished this throw by both machine and hand embellishment. Here's a close-up of a tree that I embroidered by hand. Bird-shaped buttons added the perfect finishing touch. My friend Teresa Reel created this bench and proved that as a true crazy quilter, she's not afraid to break the rules. She placed stripes next to plaids and chose vastly different prints. In theory, this combination of fabrics should not work, but it does. After all, they don't call this logical quilting. The fabrics in this bench share a common color theme, and as mismatched as the patterns and colors are, they balance, creating a beautiful effect. If you're thinking that you can't do crazy quilting, then just take a look at this scarf. Anyone can make a scarf. It's a wonderful small project, but it still gives you plenty of opportunity to use many different luxurious fabrics and embellishment stitches. My goal is to make my crazy quilt project sing. Find your crazy quilting voice by creating this simple piece. You don't have to worry about it not fitting, and you'll finish it before you know.
In this program, we added the icing on the cake, working with a basic foundation, decorative threads in the bobbin and doing the bobbin work from the wrong side, and then the extra driving technique, the embellishment of yarns on the top to add great charm and interest. When you expect expert results when pressing more features than an ordinary iron, look to the Rowenta Ultra Professional Iron. My favorite feature is the concentrated burst of steam. It is ideal for fusing interfacings and pressing fabrics, infusing high-powered steam into the fabric. Located at the tip of the iron, this feature delivers a concentration of steam, taming even the most unyielding fabrics. Plus, the iron produces constant steam no matter how much water is in the tank. Imagine being able to thread your serger at the touch of a button. The exclusive jet air threading system found on the Baby Lock E-line of sergers easily passes your thread through each of your loopers. Simply place 1 inch of thread through the porthole and push a button. Whoosh! The thread automatically threads through to the eye of the looper. Try it once and you'll discover that threading a serger can be actually fun, but best of all, truly effortless. Keep your shears and scissors sharp for a lifetime of use. To sharpen your shears, Ginger suggests that you grasp the shears firmly with the tip toward you and hold a sharpening stone against the blade's outside beveled surface. Use firm, upward overlapping strokes, working from the tip to the pivot point. A burr will develop along the cutting edge. After sharpening, close the blades to remove the burr and carefully wipe the blades clean before further use. Get ready for a sewing and quilting adventure next on Sewing with Nancy. The topic is crazy quilting, not ordinary quilting, crazy quilting with attitude. The person responsible for giving this technique an attitude and who's been my guest during this 3-part series is Barbara Randle. Barbara, I've dabbled in crazy quilting, but you've enlightened me, allowed me to think outside the box. It's been great.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me, Nancy. This is a true treat for me because I love sharing this so much with other people.
In this program, Barbara and I will show various projects to create with crazy quilting. Our first project, a 20-inch pillow, features a 12-inch quilted and embellished center square with equally exciting trim accents. Discover the joy of crazy quilting next on Sewing with Nancy. As we mentioned earlier, this is the third and final program of our series on crazy quilting with attitude, and Barbara and I are going to share with you 4 different projects using the crazy quilting panel and how to put it together. When working with this pillow, there are 3 different elements: the foundation for the crazy quilting, all the great yarn embellishments, and then the project itself. And as a quick review, let's go through again the crazy quilting idea, starting with a foundation fabric and doing the sewing.
Right, well, this is your traditional crazy quilting technique, and you start out with a 5-sided piece for the center, and then you do the sew and flip method all the way around that 5-sided piece. So you sew it and flip it until you cover the entire, that's the second piece, until you cover the entire foundation. So we're going to continue to go around this. There's our 4th piece. Here's our 5th piece, and then we're going to use the other pieces until we actually cover the whole square.
The attitude is given to this crazy quilting by adding thread embellishments as well as yarn embellishments.
That's right. This piece shows you what the effect of bobbin work will make on your seam lines.
And that's putting decorative thread into the bobbin and sewing from the flip side, the wrong side, and then the decorative hand, it looks like handwork was done by machine.
That's correct. And then the next thing we want to show is the driving.
And that was zigzagging over decorative yarns and threads.
That's correct.
And what a difference from point A to point B. That gives it the great attitude. So Barbara, when we worked with this pillow, a great pillow for dining room, bedroom, den, wherever you'd like to place, you worked with a 20-inch pillow form, but the center isn't 20 inches.
That's right.
You started with a 13-inch foundation piece, quilted it, embellished it, and then this is cut to
12 inches.
12-inch square. And you can see what fun it is, and I teased you earlier, this is kind of calm for you.
Yes, it is calm for me, but I really do love these colors, and they're beautiful colors. And you know, you want to match things to your home.
Exactly.
So, hopefully everybody's home's not done in those bright colors.
This is a 21-inch square of fabric, and rather than doing the mitered corner technique, you've streamlined it.
That's right. This is just taking this 12-inch square, finding the exact center of this 21-inch square, and actually pinning it down and stitching very close to the edge of it, just to hold it.
And we'll just
And
quickly
once you
down.
get it pinned, we're going to pin our trim around. We want to start at the very bottom. We want to identify what we consider to be the bottom of our pillow. Turn the trim under and go all the way around the pillow, mitering, tucking under at the corners so that we get this beautiful look of this luxurious fringe going around this pillow. And one great thing about doing it around the square is this is pretty expensive material right here. So you save money by not buying enough to go around the entire pillow. You're going around a smaller portion of it. So this is probably about half of what you would use for the big pillow itself. And then you come down here with it.
Sure, and finish it off.
That's
so
correct.
just straight stitching to attach it. Then there's cording that you can place around the outer edges and to give that pillow a nice final finish.
That's correct. Again, we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to use the tape of the cord as our seam allowance, and we're just going to come all the way around this pillow, making square corners with it, and end up again at the bottom, and we just overlap it as we get finished.
Let's take a look at the final pillow, basic pillow construction, but adding the cording around the edges, the tassel fringe around and trim around the framing, the crazy quilting, really gives it a finished, perfect look. Another fun and easy crazy quilted project is a neck row pillow. A pair of these would be great at each end of your sofa. You'll notice that this project features a chevron design, one of the crazy quilting variations that we explained in the first program of this series. Now here are the dimensions for this great accent pillow. Barbara, we have wonderful fabrics that we've used to create, or you've used to create, the Crazy Quilting Center. And it's chevroned, as I mentioned. And let's have a quick review of that chevron technique.
Okay. We start out with a rectangle, and we're going to use a square in the center. And we want to put it on point so that we'll get really nice angles. So you start out with the square, and then we come back and using the sew and flip method, we do fabric all the way around the square. And then we come back and we finish one end of our piece, and then we come back and finish the other end so that we end up with a rectangle that has been crazy quilted using the chevron style.
For this particular neck row pillow, Barbara started off with a piece that was about 9 inches by 22, and after then doing the embellishment of the bobbin work, the driving, using fluffy yarn, you trimmed it down.
That's right.
And the width is now 8 by 21. So you always want that foundation piece to be just a little bit bigger. For the neck row pillow, you've used some more 3-inch wide strips on either side to frame it, just on the long edges, and then presto, we'll just unfold we'll side the ends for the pillow. Now, you can see we already have one attached, but on my side, the strip width is 6.5 inches by the 21 inch in length. Now, all the dimensions are in the book that accompanies this program. Buttonholes, we have 2 buttonholes here.
That's right.
And the dimensions, or the placement here again, is
1 inch from the end and 3 inches or 2.5 inches from the side.
so you have a nice long buttonhole. It needs to be long because this tassel has to thread through here. We've already press marked this, so I'm just going to repress about 1/2 inch in, all the way down. I like your comment about these fabrics because you don't need a lot of fabric here.
That's right. This is a perfect project if you have just a little bit of fabric left over from a home deck project that you've made, and you want to add something that's really high on style and but low on amount of fabric. This is your project.
Now, after you press this before sewing, then we're going to insert the tassel. So we'll just sneak this underneath, thread the tassel through these long buttonholes. Do a test one, first of all. You don't want these too loose, and This is going to be just right once I get this through here, Barbara.
It's not the easiest thing to pull through, but it will come through.
And you'll do the same on the other end. And then after getting the tassel through, then you turn this under, and from the right side, do some top stitching. On the opposite side of this pillow fabric, we have it top stitched all the way down, and it's floating in there freely. Trim.
That's right.
Crazy quilting, crazy trims, beautiful trims, I should say.
Right. There's so many great trims out there, but we're going to come in right next to our crazy quilted piece, and we're going to lay these tassels down, and we're going to just take this piece over the top with tassel fringe, and we're going to stitch this down on both sides.
Straight stitching. Let's
That's
take a
right.
look at the pillow, because you're going to have one more seam. Let's find that seam. There we go, it's all hidden in here. The seam has been stitched, form inserted, and then the tassel's tied. And presto, a crazy quilted neck roll.
This little treasure is a piece of art to complement that special evening outfit. The purse is made entirely of silk fabrics and measures approximately 12 inches long from the top of the purse to the bottom of the tassel. The purse body consists of 4 crazy quilted pieces with wonderful confetti trim and finished with crystals and beads at the points. It's very appropriately named the Night Bloomer Evening Bag.
This bag again has very little fabric, but wow, what style. We have interesting pattern pieces, and first of all, let's look at the finished bag, and Barbara will kind of open it for you so that you can see the various elements. Here we have the chevroned crazy quilting with the embellishment, and then a lining piece, and then a complement to it. We have some fringe, the confetti trim, and then the bag is lined inside. It's just adorable. It's really a unique art piece.
And it has a drawstring, so
you can tell your love of art, your love of fabrics and trims really came together in this particular piece. This again is a chevroned patchwork. And Barbara, let's show the unembellished area.
this is the this would be a piece, this particular piece here, prior to the embellishment. It's cut a little bit larger than the actual pattern to allow for shrinkage, because that seems to always want to occur during all this embellishment.
You made 2 with the polka dots as the tip.
That's
And then 2 of the other panels, let's just kind of look at these, that had the pink at the tip, so that when they all came together, it formed
they
a little
alternate.
interesting area. Now marking really is crucial when putting these pattern pieces together.
That's right. Precision is the most important here, because everything has to fit together perfectly. And if it doesn't fit together perfectly, it's not going to work. So I just make marks to start with.
You've used 1/2-inch seam allowances, and notice that little box marking is really just the hash marks where to stop, about 1/4 of an inch from the point. And the reason for that is there's going to be a tassel that's going to come out of the intersection where all 4 pieces meet together, so we need an opening. Your life is in samples just the way mine is. We have these 4 shapes, oblong shapes that come together, and first of all you stitched 1/2 of them together and stopped 1/4 of an inch from the point, stitched another pair together, again stopping 1/2 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch from the point, and then put the 2 halves. So you have a little baseball cap effect. The pattern in the book will definitely give all the instructions where to stop and stop stitching. Now the tassel, you've really used some very interesting heavy-duty tassels.
Well, I found out the hard way that you really have to get good tassels or they're going to explode. So,
You have little beads all over the floor.
We've left this little place in the bottom of the purse.
And we're adding it through with the bodkin. We're just going to pull this
We're going to
tassel.
pull this through here. And once it's through here, I like to pull it as tight as I can and sit down at the sewing machine with it and sew it very close to that little opening, and you have your lines there. So it's really a good idea to use your zipper foot to get really close to that.
Now let's just scoot this right side out. That would be sewn, not pinned, but for now we're just pinning it. And when we discussed this, I said, well, now we have to press the seams open, and that's not what you do at this point.
That's right. To get a nice crisp edge, we're going to press the seams flat together, just like this. And I used as my foundation fabric an organdy, which gives a nice crisp finish, but it's not too thick because you don't need much thickness here. So you have a nice form, but without the thickness.
Then there are the outside pieces have confetti trim that's been stitched down. Not a lot of work, just a single row of stitching to attach the trim on the opposite side. And look at this wonderful
It's
trim.
yardage. It's at first Nancy thought it was just a yarn that we had done something to, but it comes as yardage.
So the inside, the same way as the outside, meet right sides together and sew around the edges. And what an interesting evening bag with great style, great trim, great flair.
This little purse is probably the most popular of all my designs and was the real first purse that I made. Finished, it measures 8.5 inches wide and 9 inches tall with a 2.5 inch gusset. It's small in size, yet it's big in color and design. Here are the simple steps to create your own one-of-a-kind little purse with an attitude. Nancy is now going to show you how it's put together.
Barbara just discussed this little purse, and it has a lot of charm to it. You're going to be creating crazy panels that are about 10.5 by 10 3/4 for the front and the back, plus a little extra piece for the tab that holds this beautiful tassel. The portion of this handbag that I would like to detail is working with the cording. I think this is an area that really sets off the purse as well as giving it some support. There's a side panel piece. The side piece is 3.5 inches wide, and we've already attached 2 strips of piping along the edges. This was purchased piping, or you could make your own, and I believe this stripe cut on the bias is really an excellent accent trim for this crazy piecing. We would like to use 1/2 inch seam allowances, so using a cording foot which has a hollowed out groove section on the underside so that it can slip right over the piping, and then moving the needle to the far right so that you'd stitch right along the cording of the piping. We simply attach the piping to both sides of the strip. You'll be seeing how this fits so nicely underneath the presser foot when this obviously has been sewn on already, but you can see that it just guides right down, and I'm just kind of pushing it along. But I've moved that needle to the right side to stitch in place. Keep the needle right where it is, because we're going to use the same settings to attach the panels to this side panel. This is the front panel, and the pattern in the reference book is given so that you can cut it to the right size. And notice this little corner shape. That's a very important design detail, and I've marked 1/2 inch dots, a half inch from each corner. That will give me my pivot points. Simply going to meet right sides, matching this front panel to the side panel. Place it underneath the presser foot. Now, I'm matching the cut edges of the panel and the fabric, and I don't even really have to guide it because of the cording already positioned. It just naturally wants to sew in that area. As I reach the dot, I stop with the needle in the down position, raise the presser foot, and then angle the fabrics at that little angle to meet. And when it's finished, it will look like it's a square corner, even though at this moment it isn't. Then I'm at the next dot, and I raise it, match the cut edges, and stitch. And I'm just going to sew one corner for you so that you can see how easily you can get a perfect corner with the piping already in there. Now here is the sewn sample, and now let me push it right side out. And because of that angle and the pivoting using the cording foot, you have a perfectly square bottom of this purse, but yet you didn't start out with that pattern in that shape. And this is how you attach the cording to the little purse.
The sky is the limit when it comes to crazy quilting, as you'll soon see in this gallery of original designs. This masterpiece was conceived and designed by Gloria Knoll of Meridian, Mississippi. I just have to copy her and have a crazy quilt chair in my house. She said she measured the chair and quilted the pieces larger. Then she took them to her upholsterer, and voila, instant original art that you can sit on. Gloria obviously has no color inhibitions. This project is not what you would expect from crazy quilting, but what a wonderfully vibrant addition to your home. When creating this lampshade, I toned down my color choices to more neutral shades of black, brown, and cream. But I more than made up for the neutral colors with embellishment. This lampshade is one of many examples of my feelings about embellishment, which is more is better. Go crazy with embellishment to customize a lampshade to match any interior. Use crazy quilting techniques to create a jacket that will make you anxiously await cooler weather. To create this jacket, modeled by my granddaughter Morgan, took an existing jacket apart to make the pattern. The most important thing to remember when making garments is to cut the foundation fabric larger than the pattern. Embellish to your heart's desire and then cut the quilted piece by the pattern. This will ensure a well-fitting garment.
I know that you must be excited to try crazy quilting because I certainly am. The person responsible is Barbara. Barbara, thank you for being my guest.
You're welcome.
It's been my pleasure to have Barbara as my guest and for you to join me. Bye for now.
Visit Nancy's website at sewingwithnancy.com for more information on this program. Sewing with Nancy has been made possible by grants from the following companies: Baby Lock, for the love of sewing, a premier line of sewing and embroidery machines and sergers. Ginger, a tradition of quality in scissors and shears. Madeira Threads, because creativity is never black and white. Prim Dritz, the source for sewing and quilting notions. Amazing Designs, embroidery solutions for any embroidery machine. Koala Cabinets, designed with maximum storage using minimum space. Rowenta, professional performance and beautiful results for all types of ironing. And Nancy's Notions catalog. Discover the joy of sewing and quilting.